There's a new Batman movie, which means there's a new Batmobile. The iconic vehicle has taken on many forms over the years. From a stylish hot rod to an armed-to-the-teeth tank, the Dark Knight's whip has roared across cinemas since 1966. It's hard not to think of Batman without his super advanced automobile. It's as essential to the character as his belt or his pointy ears. Batman may be able to tangle with gods and beat up venom-fueled monsters, but the guy still needs to get around. Unlike the Flash or Superman, Bruce Wayne can't just run to the crime, so he's gonna need a fast car. And you better believe it's gonna be a statement piece. Robert Pattinson is behind the wheel of a brand new Batmobile, and this one may be the best yet. Why is it such a great design? To answer that, we're gonna need to take a look at the history of every car to bear the legendary name. Batman didn't always have a car. When he first appeared in the comics, Batman just kind of swung from place to place. Batman was very much human, and his need for transportation only grew as his crime fighting got more intense. The first car he used while wearing the cowl was a simple bright red sedan. Given that Bruce Wayne was seen using the same car earlier in the same comic, this was probably also when he decided that Batman should have his own distinct ride. It's a little easier to protect your identity when you don't share a license plate with a famous billionaire. From this point on, the Batmobile sure was distinctive. Now black, the sedan had a single large wing and an even larger bust of Batman's face on the front. This was in case you were confused about who it belonged to. Variations on this theme persisted throughout the 1950s with relatively normal-looking sedans that have a wing and a bat face bolted on. I may be missing some specific example during this time that was a stunning retro classic, but there's pretty much no good-looking Batmobiles until one show changed everything forever. For a lot of people, the first introduction they had to Batman and his hot rod was the infamous TV show. The High Camp series was produced in the mid-60s and is filled with slapstick comedy, iconic villains, and celebrity guests. It also introduced the very first cool Batmobile. Sure, it existed before the show, but the Batmobile was an important and influential part of the television series. And let's face it, it never looked this good before. The series carries an extremely different tone when compared to modern Batman, and the Batmobile is influenced by that just as much as the costumes. There are still recognizable aspects to this iteration of the Caped Crusader and his car, and many key pieces of Batman lore only exist because of Adam West and his tiny shorts. Did you know that Batgirl was first created for this show? I wonder what it was about these two that made TV execs feel they needed to add more women. The long, sleek, black, double-domed rocket car has gorgeous lines, stunning red highlights, and some of the most advanced technology of 1966. Featuring gadgets like a portable bat phone, emergency bat turn lever, and a bat glove compartment, this Batmobile is packed full of gadgets and perks. It's also the first version of the Batmobile to be visibly rocket-powered. Its rear flame-spitting exhaust became a must-have feature for every single Batmobile since. Behind the scenes, the 60s Batmobile started life as a 1955 Lincoln Futura. The Futura was built over a decade earlier as a concept vehicle for the Ford Motor Company. After an initial burst of interest, the car fell out of the public's view and was eventually sold to Hollywood auto customization expert George Barris for $1. The car remained in his shop until he was contracted by the Batman showrunners to craft a Batmobile for the upcoming television series. Barris pulled the Futura out of storage, and after only 15 days and a cost of $15,000, his company delivered this iconic beauty to the LA set. Barris is a bit of a legend in movie car circles, and not just for the Batmobile. He has also had a hand in designing the cars for Jurassic Park, Knight Rider, and Starsky and Hutch. Barris's Batmobile has stood the test of time. Even if you don't like the camp and goofiness of the 66 series, you have to admit that this Batmobile is a sexy beast. In the summer of 1989, Batmania swept the world. The Caped Crusader was set to make his first big screen appearance since 1966. People went absolutely nuts over Batman. The bat symbol was everywhere, even shaved into the back of people's heads. Yes, including me. I don't have a picture, but trust me, it looked ridiculous. Tim Burton was redefining the Dark Knight, and his Batman was clad in solid black and needed a car to match.
Doesn't get those wonderful toys.
The '89 Batmobile is curvy and armed to the teeth. Measuring over 21.8 feet long, there's no missing this land yacht as it blazes down the streets of Gotham. Appearing in both Batman '89 and Batman Returns, this Batmobile features pop-up mounted machine guns, side-mounted bombs, and an extremely specific ability to break into a thinner version, ? If narrow alleyways are such a constant concern, Batman should just ride a bike. While the details may betray Tim Burton's misunderstanding of Batman, the larger picture is a gorgeous and equally iconic automobile. Once again, this car spits hot fire and features tastefully branded rims. Its old-school rear lights and long hood enhance Batman '89's neo-retro aesthetic. If my tone betrays me, it's because this is easily my favorite of the live-action Batmobiles. My diecast version has seen better days with its broken axle and scuffed front end, but I am happy to report that the Joker did not, in fact, get away. Designed by Anton Furst under direction from Burton, the screen model was built on the chassis of an '88 Chevrolet Impala. Actually, make that two Chevrolet Impalas spliced together. Again, 21.8 feet long. Yes, under all this muscle and vengeance is two of your grandma's grocery getters. Powered by a V8 engine, the three models built for filming were not very fast. On screen, it could look like it was tearing up the streets of Gotham, but in actuality, it was hard to maneuver the glorified prop. Tim Burton lost direct control of the Batman franchise after Batman Returns tried to sell Big Macs with a film featuring things like this and this. With the third film, Batman Forever, directing was handed over to Joel Schumacher. This film went for a much lighter tone. While Val Kilmer's Batman retained some of the Caped Crusader's brooding nature, the world around him was much more neon. This sudden influx of black lights and dayglow that infested Gotham extended to Batman's distinctive ride. The new Batmobile retained some of the key aspects of previous versions, but exaggerated them. The rear jet exhaust was longer and more pronounced. The wings were larger and included a new, even taller third wing. How Batman wasn't worried about low clearance bridges? I'll never know. For some reason, this tall third wing could split further into two wings. That's 4 wings. This car's like a TGI Fridays, wings for days. Batman Forever doubled down on the retro world of Gotham, and this Batmobile is no different. It features 1940s hot rod style headlamps and the kind of lines you would see in a '38 Bugatti. This neoclassic ride includes rotating wheels with glowing bat symbol rims. If you own this piece of American automotive ingenuity, you too could take advantage of an onboard gas-powered grappling hook. Perfect for cutting hours off your commute. Batman Forever has so far been the last time we have seen a Batmobile that was sleek, stylish, and a little fantastical. It's not as iconic as the two before, but it's still worthy of the title Batmobile. And now for the complete opposite. Yes, this thing. It's as neon crazy and over-designed as the film it's featured in. Though it may have some familiar elements, they are twisted and wrong, like a loved one's face during an Ambien-fueled night terror. Once again, the mantle of the Batman passed to another actor, and once again it meant a redesign of the man's car. You can't sell new toys if the car doesn't change, and oh boy, did they design this thing as a toy first. Measuring in at a whopping 29.8 feet long, you'd think there would be room for more than one seat. This car did the right thing by dropping down to a more appropriate 2 wings, but they also removed any sign of a windshield. Batman's face should be covered in bug guts by the time he gets to Mr. Freeze. I hope he keeps a pack of bat wet wipes in his belt. They make up for losing 2 extra wings by including 6 separate jet exhausts on the back. This is the only cinematic Batmobile without a singular rear exhaust. Clooney's Batmobile also glows like a Miami nightclub. Red, blue, orange. This thing is a rolling Daft Punk concert, only much lamer. This Batmobile has more in common with Greased Lightning than with anything that came before or since. Extra lucky for us is the ice sled version we see later in the film, which at least gives Batman a windshield. It's still a far more dignified ride than the fan sled Robin is saddled with.
No, Robin, I'm not infantilizing you. Now get in the windy scoot.
Batman and Robin was widely ridiculed at the time, and to this day is infamous for both comic fans and movie nerds. Its neon gloss aesthetic and return to 60s style camp was derided, and Batman wouldn't return to cinemas for 8 years. Clooney's Batmobile is now thankfully relegated to the dustbin, but should never be forgotten. It should be erected as an indestructible warning for future generations, forever echoing an immutable message. Don't repeat our mistakes. Now on to happier stuff, like the dark and realistically gritty world of Christopher Nolan. In 2005, Batman was back with Nolan's Batman Begins. Starring Christian Bale as the man himself, Batman Begins offered up a take on the superhero that was grounded in reality. This wasn't a world where supervillains held parades. In Nolan's Gotham, the mob could have someone shot in a courthouse and then pay to have the police look the other way. So when Batman decides to go to war with the criminals of Gotham, he's gonna bring a tank.
Well, the Tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
The Tumbler, as it's called in the film, is a top-secret military vehicle built by Wayne Enterprises. Soon-to-be CEO Lucius Fox explains that it was originally intended to create bridges by jumping over rivers with cables in tow. Initially conceived with a muddled block of clay shaped by Nolan, it was fully designed by Nathan Crowley from an initial kit bash model to a fully functional automobile. The Tumbler was built from the ground up on a custom-made steel frame. During testing, the handcrafted vehicle could reach speeds up to 100 miles per hour. Nolan's tank was the first one since the '66 version that could actually burn rubber. The Tumbler had very little else in common with its predecessors. Gone are the sleek lines and retro stylings. The large single jet exhaust was there, but now it had more in common with actual jet fighters. Its 2 front wheels sat on independent sides, and its 4 back wheels provided incredible liftoff. On the fictional side, this Batmobile featured a slide-open cockpit with adjustable seating and 2 explosive cannons. As advertised, the Tumbler's also a jumper.
Oh, this guy's a jumper, you could tell.
The Tumbler appears in all 3 Nolan films in one way or another. It's featured heavily in the first movie during an exciting rooftop car chase, and then when Gordon uses it to demolish an important piece of public transportation. In The Dark Knight, the Tumbler meets its end during the Joker's attempt on Harvey Dent's life. A direct hit from an RPG sends the car crashing off and leaves Batman out of the fight. Except it doesn't, because another hidden feature of this tank is an ejectable motorcycle nicknamed the Batpod. It's far less ridiculous than the Bat Missile in Batman Returns, however it still suspends believability a little. Was this a stock feature from when this used to be a military vehicle? Or did Morgan Freeman add it in later? Mr. Wayne, I've added a new feature that turns the car into a sweet motorcycle. You'll need it eventually. The Dark Knight Rises featured several Tumblers with new features like roof-mounted cannons. Bane steals a fleet of the vehicles from Wayne Enterprises, again raising questions about what Lucius Fox had planned for all these tanks. Snyder's take on Batman was always going to be a little intense. With Ben Affleck taking on the cowl, this Batman was older, harder, and less inclined to joke around with Alfred. The BVS Batmobile reflects all this with its utilitarian design and large front-mounted twin cannon. There's a lot to like about both versions of Affleck's Batmobile, or so I'm told. The horizontal fins echo the wings of yesteryear, and it certainly looks intimidating. Oh, and I like the low profile. It sure is close to the ground. When it returned for the long-promised Justice League movie, it received some modifications. The biggest difference was the large third cannon added to the vehicle. Now it looked even more like a particularly fast tank. Night Owl, Batman, tears through hundreds of parademons using the various machine guns and missiles. The Snyder Cut even features several long, loving glory shots of the Batmobile. Still not worth the 4 hours spent watching the Snyder Cut, though. Ooh. Finally, we arrive at the latest version of the illustrious automobile. The new Batmobile is both very different and very familiar in all the right ways. More akin to a classic Impala or Camaro, Pattenson's ride looks like an old-school stock car retrofitted with a jet engine. It may look more comfortable on a Tennessee drag strip than in the streets of Gotham, but you need all the power you can get when you're chasing down the Penguin.
Take that, you wicked psycho!
There are familiar and very welcome design elements in this new version of the classic car. It's the first one since Clooney's to have proper, honest-to-God wings. The Batman also takes the Batmobile further back to its roots by being the first one since 1966 to have regular-degular doors. The newest Batmobile takes audiences back to a time when the iconic car didn't have to be an over-armed battle tank, but a slick hot rod. We have Ash Thorpe to thank for this impressive new design. The concept artist put some amazing and clever work into his Batmobile. Particularly amazing is that the entire rear of the vehicle creates the shape of the bat symbol when viewed straight on. We don't know much about the gadgets on board, but it seems like this Batmobile is very stripped down. Built more for speed than battle, it shows a do-it-yourself quality from Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. It's like he built this thing while having a beer after work. The Batmobile is as iconic as its pointy-eared owner. Over the decades, it has evolved from a customized Lincoln hot rod to an Art Deco masterpiece, and then to a powerful hand-built tank. The Batmobile has had many forms and will continue to be iconic and inventive. The Batman roars into theaters in March. When it does, we'll all get a closer look at this latest Batmobile. Will it stand with other great cars to bear the name, or will it be forgotten along with that thing George Clooney drove? It's hard to say, but probably not, because this one isn't covered in neon and has a roof. That puts it higher in my book.
Chicks dig the car.